Roland, there's nothing new about this conversation. It's just stark and out in the open right now.
Well, it's always been the case. I'm actually at Corinth Church here in Houston. I'm about to do the Black History Month program, and I'm wearing this. This is the Ghanaian symbol, Guineami, it represents the immortality of God. And understand what's going on. We got to make one slight adjustment, what you laid out in your intro, Ali. This is not Christian nationalism. This is ideologically driven, white, right-wing Christian nationalism. The reason that distinction is so important, this is literally the return of the slaveholder religion. That same pastor who stood with Pete Hegseth said that people who were who held slaves, they were biblically sound in doing so. And so we're seeing this in Texas. They have passed a voucher bill, and they have not approved a single private Muslim school to receive the vouchers. They're all Christian schools. And so they don't want religious diversity. They want white Christian nationalism through a right-wing prism. That is their agenda.
Peter, you recently spoke about how people confuse nationalism with patriotism, and that's what I'm most worried about here. There's an implication that if you follow some of these followings, you're a patriot, and if you don't, I mean, it got crazy, right? I mean, even Bad Bunny is not a patriot. What's he got to do with anybody's religious beliefs? But either you are this, or you're outside and disloyal and unpatriotic.
Yeah, I mean, one way I think about it is that patriotism has to do with the individual's relationship to the country. So the idea is that the individual is willing to sacrifice for the good of the country. And we see that in all kinds of ways that Americans do that. By that standard, Donald Trump is about the least patriotic guy you can possibly imagine, right? Because he doesn't make any distinction, but you can't imagine a situation where Donald Trump would put the public good above his own wallet, above his own ego. I think nationalism has to do with the relationship of your country to other countries. So Donald Trump is a nationalist. Pete Hegseth is a nationalist in the sense that they'd like to make other countries buckle down to the United States. They'd like to dominate other countries, right? But they're not patriots in the sense that they're willing to put the interests of the public good above their own selfish interests.
Roland, what do we do about this? Because it gets away from people, because if it doesn't really affect you personally, you don't really care that religion starts to seep into things. But it's everywhere, and it doesn't make you anything to just not to want to believe that your country and its governance is separate from religion. You don't have to dislike anybody's religion. You don't have to embrace anybody's religion. But how do we actually all learn to take this seriously and do something about it?
Well, because we have to understand what their agenda is. This ideologically driven right-wing Christian nationalism is about women. And I'm telling you, white women, y'all need to understand, they don't want you working. They want you laying up at home, birthing babies and serving their dinner. They literally say that, okay? They don't want to see African-Americans and Latinos and others advance in this country. Listen, these same people love the Catholic Church for its opposition to abortion, but they despise the Catholic Church and the Pope when it comes to the treatment of undocumented workers and when it comes to the death penalty. And so we see what they are. But this is American history. We have to go back and look at what we call the slaveholders' religion. That was slaveholder Christianity. That wasn't Christianity. And then coming out of slavery, 92 years of Jim Crow, guess what we saw? We saw the church, the white church, the Christian white church driving Jim Crow, the Southern Baptist Convention, and others. And even when we talk about voting, your previous segment, keep in mind, the same white Southerners use racism, use discrimination to drive to get out to vote. And when that stopped working, that's when abortion became in. Paul Weyrich stood up in 1981 and said, we don't want everyone to vote. So people need to understand, this goes way beyond religion. They literally want to infuse every facet of our society with their ideologically driven, white, right-wing Christian nationalism.
Peter, I worry about the rise of Turning Point USA, which is what Roland was just talking about. I mean, they have a view about a religiously based view about women in particular and what their roles in society should be. I mean, good on Erica Kirk that she's running the whole operation, but she never would have actually been able to do that had she applied for the job. They would have said, you're not really what we're looking for.
Right. I mean, the whole basis of this is to say that there's one group of people who own America, right? The people who own America are white, Christian, straight men. Everybody else, Right, and right, which I think actually is a kind of idolatry, right? I mean, one of the things that in the Jewish tradition, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel emphasized was that racism is idolatry because it violates the core principle that all human beings are created equal in the image of God. As the Talmud, which is sitting behind me, says in Jewish tradition that no human being can say, my father is greater than yours because we're all descended from the same God. But this entire Trump project is about creating a tiers of citizens, right, in which some people own the country and other people are guests. And George Washington, even though Washington, of course, was a slaveholder, when Washington said in Newport to that Jewish congregation that I'm not speaking about tolerance, because tolerance suggests that I am granting you your rights, but instead saying that there is nobody, no religion has ownership over America, right? Of course, he didn't fully live out those principles, but the principles became something that people could fight for and cling to. And this is why what's being done to Muslims, particularly in Texas, is so profoundly dangerous. A Muslim child in America needs to grow up knowing that they are as much an owner of this country. It doesn't matter that they may be a small minority. They are as much an owner of this country as a white Christian whose family goes back to the Mayflower. And that's what we're fighting for.
Roland, one of the things Peter just talked about, I think it's important, is that if we can get away from the concept of tolerance, that I owe you some degree of tolerance, you owe me, as opposed to a pluralism, that we're all here and we're better for being here. And the beauty is that the three of us right now on TV are people of different faiths. I'm a Muslim. Roland, you're a Christian. Peter, you're an observant Jew. And that's, we're richer for this than we would be in any other fashion.
But you got to understand, Ali, they don't want that. Again, the ideologically driven right-wing white Christian nationalism, they think that actually what has hurt America. Charlie Kirk, the Civil Rights Act, hurt America. They are preaching Dr. King, he was a communist. That hurt America. When they say make America great again, they're talking about a world where white Christian nationalism drove the American agenda. And again, right wing, they didn't like that pastor, Doug Wilson, he called the abolitionists, called them radical extremists, William Lloyd Garrison, John Brown. So you had white Christians who opposed slavery. But you got to understand, Bishop William Barber and Repairers of the Breach, they were arrested when they went to the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, and they were simply praying out loud. Yet then you will have right-wing Christians who come to the Rotunda and they will do concerts and pray, and they're cool with that. So they don't want Christians praying. They want right-wing Christians praying, and that is their agenda. So we just need to be very clear with what they are doing, and it's abundantly clear, and we have to oppose it at every turn. I don't have to hate you. You're a Muslim, you're Jewish, that's great. That's all good. But I can still love Jesus and love you and say you have the right to worship any way you desire in this country. That is the real America.
We had Bishop Barber on the show yesterday on this topic of faith leaders and clergy fighting bad things. And one of the things that's working, and I don't know if this works en masse, but certainly on the immigration side, is that clergy from different faiths are coming together. We see rabbis and imams and priests and reverends and pastors coming together to protect communities that are being terrorized by ICE. Can that happen on a more wholesale fashion? I mean, the last few years in America has looked like wedges driven between people of different faiths, including Jews and Muslims in particular. Can that be an antidote?
Absolutely. It has to be. I mean, one of our proudest traditions as American Jews is that American Jews were active in the civil rights movement, because American Jews understood that if African Americans got the right to vote, then that would also eliminate the last vestiges of institutionalized anti-Semitism in many parts of the United States. Sadly, many of America's prominent Jewish organizations today, like the Anti-Defamation League, for instance, have basically completely walked away from that vision. Trump can say whatever he wants about Somali people, about Muslims, about immigrants. They don't say a word. And it's not only immoral, it's profoundly, profoundly foolish. Because once they go after Somali, once they go after Muslims and trans people, they're coming for us sooner or later. Just listen to Nick Fuentes. He is clear as day. He says, I can say, the Republican Party lets me say whatever I want about black people and whatever I want about Muslim people. And now they object when I say whatever I want about Jewish people. He is exposing the fallacy that you can fight for the rights of only one group of people without fighting for the rights of every group of people.
You guys, I really appreciate it. It's an important conversation. Thanks to you both, my friends. Roland Martin is the host and managing editor of the Roland Martin Unfiltered digital show. Peter Beinart is the editor-at-large at Jewish Currents and an MS Now political analyst. All right, coming up.